Ree grew bolder until a rumble of motorcycles filled the air, and a dozen Hells Angels bikers strode through the door, their presence commanding an instant hush over the entire room. What unfolded in the next few moments would turn a routine lunch stop into a lesson in respect that the town would talk about for years. Emma Rodriguez was 14 years old when the incident occurred at Betty's Diner in Redwood Valley. She had cerebral palsy, a condition that affected her muscle control and made everyday tasks like eating a bit more challenging. Emma lived with her parents, Maria and Carlos, in a nearby trailer park, and they often stopped at the diner after her physical therapy sessions in Ukiah. On this particular Saturday in July 2022, the family was seated in a booth by the window, enjoying a simple meal. Emma was carefully navigating her fork to her mouth, her movements deliberate but determined. Maria helped occasionally, wiping her daughter's chin with a napkin, while Carlos chatted about the day's events. The diner was a local staple, known for its greasy spoon fare, and a crowd of regulars who gathered there for coffee and conversation. On this day, a table of 4 men, local loggers in their 40s and 50s, sat nearby. They had been drinking coffee after a long shift, their voices carrying across the small space. One of them, a burly man named Hank, noticed Emma first. He nudged his buddy, whispering something that elicited a chuckle. Soon, the laughter grew louder, with comments like, "Look at that one trying to feed herself," and imitations of Emma's movements. The other men joined in, their mockery undisguised. Maria glanced over, her face tightening, but she focused on Emma, not wanting to escalate the situation. Carlos shifted uncomfortably, his hands balling into fists under the table. He was a mechanic, not one for confrontations, but the comments were cutting deep. Emma, aware of the stares, lowered her head, her appetite fading. The diner's owner, Betty, was in the kitchen, and the waitress, a young woman named Sarah, pretended not to hear as she refilled coffee cups. The atmosphere in the diner shifted from casual to tense, with other patrons averting their eyes. Outside, the sound of revving engines grew louder. A group of Hells Angels, part of the Redwood chapter, had pulled into the parking lot. They were on a ride from Eureka to San Francisco, stopping for a quick bite. The bikers, dressed in leather vests adorned with patches, helmets under their arms, numbered about a dozen. They were led by a veteran member named Big Mike, a towering figure with a graying beard and a reputation for being fair but firm. The group had no idea what was happening inside when they decided to enter Betty's Diner. As the door swung open, the bell jingled and the room fell silent. The laughter from the loggers' table stopped abruptly. Heads turned as the bikers filed in, their boots thudding on the linoleum floor. Big Mike scanned the room, his eyes landing on the Rodriguez family. He noticed Emma immediately, perhaps because one of his own nieces had a similar condition. The bikers took seats at the counter and a large table nearby, their presence dominating the space. Sarah approached them nervously, taking orders for burgers and coffee. The loggers tried to resume their conversation, but their voices were hushed now. Hank made one more comment under his breath, mimicking Emma again, but was loud enough for Big Mike to hear. The biker turned his head slowly, his gaze locking onto Hank. "You got a problem, pal?" Big Mike asked, his voice deep and steady. The diner went even quieter, if that was possible. Hank shifted in his seat, mumbling something about minding his own business. But Big Mike wasn't having it. He stood up, walking over to the loggers' table, the other bikers watching closely. Big Mike leaned down, his face inches from Hank's. "That girl over there? She's just trying to eat her meal like anyone else. You think it's funny to pick on her?" Hank's friends looked away, suddenly interested in their coffee cups. Hank tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked. "We were just joking around," he said. Big Mike shook his head. "Jokes like that ain't funny. Apologize." It wasn't a request. The other bikers stood up, forming a loose circle around the table. The loggers, outnumbered and intimidated, muttered apologies. Hank, red-faced, turned to the Rodriguez family and said, "Sorry about that." Emma looked up, her eyes wide. Maria nodded appreciatively, while Carlos exhaled in relief. Big Mike wasn't done. He walked over to Emma's booth, kneeling down to her level. "Hey, there, kiddo," he said softly. "Don't let idiots like that ruin your day. "You're doing great." Emma smiled shyly, and Big Mike pulled a patch from his vest, a small Hells Angels emblem, and handed it to her. "Keep this. It means you're tough." The gesture broke the tension, and a few patrons even clapped. Betty emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She had heard the commotion and was grateful it hadn't escalated further. The bikers paid for their meals, leaving a generous tip for Sarah, and also covered the Rodriguez family's bill. As they left, Big Mike nodded to Carlos. "Take care of your family," he said. The motorcycles roared to life outside, and the diner returned to its normal hum. But the atmosphere was different, more respectful, more aware. Word of the incident spread quickly through Redwood Valley. Locals talked about it at the grocery store, the bar, and church the next day. The loggers, embarrassed, kept a low profile for weeks. Hank later admitted to friends that he'd learned his lesson, vowed to think twice before making fun of anyone. Emma, meanwhile, treasured the patch, pinning it to her backpack. It became a symbol of unexpected kindness for her family. The Hells Angels chapter got wind of the positive buzz. Big Mike received calls from other members, praising the group's actions. It wasn't the first time the club had stepped in for someone in need. Despite their rough image, many chapters engaged in charity rides and community support. This event added to their local reputation, showing a side often overlooked by the media. Maria and Carlos reached out to the Redwood Hells Angels chapter a few days later, sending a thank you card with a photo of Emma holding the patch. Big Mike responded with an invitation to a charity event the club was hosting for disabled children. The Rodriguez family attended, where Emma met other kids with similar challenges. The bikers organized games, rides on their motorcycles, with helmets and supervision, and raised funds for adaptive equipment. The story made its way to local news outlets. A reporter from the Ukiah Daily Journal interviewed Betty, who described the event as a real eye-opener for everyone. Sarah, the waitress, shared how the bikers' intervention made her realize she should have spoken up sooner. The article highlighted the contrast between the club's intimidating appearance and their compassionate actions, sparking discussions about stereotypes. Emma's school got involved too. Her teacher, Mrs. Larson, used the incident as a teaching moment in class, discussing empathy and standing up to bullying. Emma shared her story, showing the patch, which inspired her classmates to be more inclusive. The school even organized a kindness week in response, with activities focused on understanding disabilities. As months passed, the diner saw changes. Betty posted signs promoting respect and zero tolerance for harassment. She trained her staff to intervene in such situations, and Sarah became more proactive, often checking on families with special needs. The loggers returned eventually, but their behavior was subdued, and they even greeted the Rodriguez family politely on subsequent visits. David Thompson, a sociologist from nearby Mendocino College, analyzed the event in a paper on community dynamics. He noted how the Hells Angels intervention served as a catalyst for social change in a small town, where external authority figures could shift norms more effectively than locals. His research pointed to similar incidents where biker groups had protected vulnerable individuals, challenging public perceptions. Emma's confidence grew from the experience. She started a blog with her mother's help, sharing her life with cerebral palsy and advocating for disability rights. The patch became her logo, and she gained a small following online. Big Mike commented on one of her posts, encouraging her to keep going. The Hells Angels continued their rides, but the Redwood chapter made a point to stop at Betty's Diner more often. They became regulars, bringing in business and fostering a sense of community. Betty even added a biker special to the menu, a hearty burger plate, in their honor. Years later, in 2025, Emma, now 17, reflected on the day in an interview for a documentary on unexpected heroes. "Those bikers showed me that help can come from anywhere," she said. "They didn't know me, but they stood up for me. It changed how I see the world." Big Mike, retired from riding but still active in the club, added, "We look out for our own, and that includes kids like Emma. No one deserves to be mocked." The incident at Betty's Diner remained a local legend, a reminder that silence in the face of injustice can be broken by the most unlikely allies. It prompted ongoing dialogues about respect empathy, and the power of intervention, influencing not just the individuals involved, but the broader community. Maria and Carlos often recounted the story to friends, emphasizing the importance of speaking up. "We were too shocked to react at first," Maria said. "But the bikers did what we couldn't in that moment." Carlos agreed, noting how it strengthened their family bond. Betty's diner thrived, attracting visitors who heard the story and wanted to see the place where it happened. Betty donated a portion of proceeds to disability charities, honoring the event's legacy. The loggers, particularly Hank, underwent personal growth. Hank volunteered at a local center for disabled youth, sharing his mistake as a cautionary tale. "I was wrong," he admitted, "and I'm glad someone called me out." Emma's blog evolved into a platform for advocacy, partnering with organizations like the Cerebral Palsy Foundation. She spoke at events, using her experience to inspire others. The Hells Angels' involvement highlighted their charitable side. The Redwood chapter increased community outreach, hosting more events for families in need. Sociologist David Thompson's paper gained attention, cited in studies on subcultures and social justice. It underscored how groups like the Hells Angels could affect positive change. In Redwood Valley, the diner became a symbol of transformation. Patrons were kinder, conversations more inclusive. Emma kept the patch, a talisman of resilience. "It's not about the bikers," she said. "It's about standing up for what's right." The story continued to resonate, proving that one act of courage can ripple far beyond a single diner.